All right, everybody, back with another one. And today we're going to take a look at something important that I think that a lot of young Gen Z people are missing as an opportunity. But we're going to discuss that because it ties into a couple different topics today. One of which being a lot of Gen Z kids are growing up, coming out of high school, and following in the traditional footsteps of a lot of what previous generations had done. But tides are turning, things are changing, and I don't know that the same playbook is going to apply to the future generations the way that it has. And it hasn't really even worked out that well for the millennials and Gen X, mostly the millennials actually. The Gen X is kind of, an earlier wave of this. But we're going to talk a little bit today about Gen Z and college and blue collar jobs. I want to take a look at a couple different things. I want to look at the national debt surrounding federally insured student loans. So let's jump into that. So what we're looking at right now is the national debt clock. And this is basically a breakdown of more than just the debt. It's essentially America's balance sheet. Now, to my knowledge, it's not a government run website. It's a private organization, but all the numbers are sourced from the government and are as accurate as anything that I've seen. So I believe this is the most legitimate resource you'll find for most up to date information on, America's basically income and expenses. Now it's gotten a lot better over the years. They've added a lot more detailed items that weren't there in the past. You can see here they have like a section for cryptocurrency. They have some new Doge stuff up here. So there's definitely a lot of new things that were added recently that are a lot more informative. But I want you to take a look at this and just see what's going on with the national debt and the income, and understand that America is heavily in debt. Now, a lot of economists will say that seems bad because the debt outweighs the income, and that seems like it's a big deal. But the truth is, America could just print the money and make up for that, which is a race to the bottom. It will never work out. No nation has ever successfully printed themselves out of debt and printed themselves to prosperity. In fact, it has worked the opposite for nations in the past where they had, too much of a supply of something, and basic economic supply and demand actually ended up being their downfall. You could look back in history with different cultures that used shells and different things that were plentiful as currency, and it didn't work out, or even the tulip situation a long time ago in Europe, where they were using that at one point, not as currency, but it was, highly valuable, and the price of them went up a lot, kept going up until eventually it was so overinflated that people realized it was ridiculous because you could just keep growing through tulips, and it crashed the entire tulip market. So look into that stuff on your own time, but no one has ever successfully done, like I said, printed their way to prosperity. So, you know, it's not good that our debt outweighs our income. And that applies to any person in America. And if you ever wonder why we're all having this same collective problem. And, obviously rich people don't have it as bad because they have a lot more income. And a lot of times when they do have debt, it's typically investment debt. So it's not the same thing as having bad debt like credit card debt. But, collectively it lines up with what is happening with the individual American. The average poor American and middle class American is heavily in debt. And it is very comparable to what's going on with the nation as a whole when you look at the national debt clock. Their debt outweighs their income, and they just keep getting deeper and deeper in debt, and interest drives that debt up automatically. And if the income doesn't also go up as rapidly as the debt, then the debt will eventually outweigh the income by a significant amount. I think the annual interest on the debt that we have as a nation is 1 trillion a year. That is significant, and it's enough to really cripple us. But a lot of economists will try and make this argument and say, oh, well, America has a lot of assets that we are using as collateral for the debt, and they outweigh the national debt. And that is true. If you do look at the bottom here, you will see that we have 169 trillion in hidden wealth, and that applies to many different factors. But the truth is, that's all stuff that we would have to sell off to pay off the debt, in which case Americans would give away a portion of their nation to their debtors in order to get out of that debt. So yeah, we could sell off a portion of our country. A lot of it is in real estate, as you can see here, 75 trillion and other things, but we would be giving away um, pieces of America to other countries to pay our debts that we, wrongfully allowing the government officials to do this have gotten us into deep debt that now we are basically slaves to other nations. And America was always free. We were independent. In fact, we grew rapidly to become the world superpower by being independent. And that's exactly what got us there. And that's how we became the world's number one, trading country. We trade with more nations than any other nation in the world, in world's history, actually. So it's important to understand that a lot of the debts that we get ourselves into is unnecessary. It's, credit cards are the worst of them. Credit cards are the worst because it's bad debt. You typically just use it to buy things that you can't afford, and we've become a culture of materialism where we will basically make ourselves beholden to someone else and pay a premium on that item just to have it now instead of saving up for it and paying for it with our actual dollars. And as a nation, we operate like that as a whole. We over leverage ourselves all the time. We constantly buy things that we can't afford because we want it now. We want it immediately instead of having patience. And by the time we buy it, we actually own it. We are instead borrowing it from our debtors and with the promise to pay the money back to them at a premium. Let's just say the average interest rate on a credit card is, let's just say it's like 25%, because it's probably somewhere between 18 and 28%, depending on, what interest rate you're approved for. Let's just say it's 25% to be at a fair number. That would be like every time you buy a $100 item, you're actually paying 125 for it, even though the actual retail price, no sale, is $100. You're paying a premium on that just to have it now. So you're actually paying more money to get it in a quicker amount of time, and it doesn't benefit you in any way. If you would just wait for it, you could own the product outright and then have it forever and owe nobody anything and pay what you should have paid for it. Sometimes even less, right? You could always negotiate down because a lot of times when you're willing to pay people cash, they're more willing to be negotiable. But when you pay them credit cards or other forms of payment, because they have to document everything for tax purposes and things like that, they're a lot less likely to negotiate down. And especially with fees and stuff, they want to, actually you to pay more money because of all that stuff. So I'm not saying cash is the best. I'm just saying that we shouldn't be in debt. We shouldn't be borrowing to have things. Credit cards really should have just been for emergency purposes. If you have a nest egg of money and you're saving it up, and all of a sudden you come down with an illness, you need to pay a large medical bill, you just don't have enough money, and you're unable to work it out with them where you could do a payment plan and pay it down. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, so credit cards are there as like a safe haven. Is it a good idea? No, because the interest rates are so high. But when you're in a pinch and you need money fast, you don't always have a choice. So sometimes you have to choose a bad option over a worse option, which is to, not get the medical attention and then not be able to overcome that health issue. So I'm not totally against credit cards. I just think that they should only be used in your personal life for absolute extraordinary emergencies when you absolutely cannot wait, but you know that you're able to get the cash to pay them back quickly before the interest rate ends up kicking in and you end up paying a premium for that item. Now, that's just credit card debt. Another major thing we're going to talk about today is student loan debt. Student loan debt is one of the biggest debts that our country has hanging over the American people's heads. And we're going to take a look at that now. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, student loan debt in the United States as of Q4 2024, so basically the end of 2024, we're in the beginning of 2025 right now. So this is just months ago, not even a year ago, months ago. The value of outstanding student loan debt has surpassed $1.7 trillion, the majority of which is made up of federal loans. So just to understand that, the federal loans are the loans that you can't default on. They're not private loans. They're federal loans, so they're through the government, and they're backed by the taxpayer. So even if you were to file bankruptcy, you can't get out of not paying them. You can't get out of paying them. You have to actually pay them. And even if you file bankruptcy, they're the only things that won't go on that list of things that you can get rid of that will follow you through life. And if there's an interest rate on it, it will accumulate interest over time and the debt will get bigger. So $1.7 trillion of the national debt is unpaid student loan debt. Now, granted, some of that is probably people who are still currently in college, so they're not able to pay it yet because they haven't graduated and gotten the job from that degree that is going to help them pay down the debt and live their life. A lot of that debt is not. It's people who have graduated long ago and still haven't finished paying it down. There are many people who make good money, lawyers, doctors who go to prestigious schools like Harvard and Yale and other Ivy League schools. They get pretentious degrees, they get jobs making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and it takes them 10 or more years sometimes to pay down their student loan debt from college because they took out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of loans. So it's not just a thing of the poor can't pay their debts back. The rich have a problem, or the high upper middle class have a problem with it too. And a lot of it is around the fact that colleges today are so expensive. They never used to be this expensive. It was relatively inexpensive. And the way it typically works in the free market is, yes, demand drives prices up, but also demand creates a surges of supply because you want to meet that demand. Then there's an equilibrium, and that typically tends to bring the prices of things down because now you have free market competition and you have competitors competing with each other to bring the price down so that you could, you know, earn that customer's business over the other competitor who's more expensive. Now it starts to be a level playing field where everybody starts deciding to keep their prices around the same level naturally, not no one's colluding. Typically, that's how prices get to an equilibrium point where they are, you know, just so happens that everywhere you go, eggs are all the same price. That's because they're all competing with each other. But it's free, it's on the open market, and everybody agrees this is the price that customers are willing to pay. This is the most we can get out of them. Anything more, it's not going to work. They're going to go to somebody else who's cheaper. That didn't happen with student loans. It didn't happen with college. College has gone up significantly every year, year over year for decades now, and it's not going down anytime soon. That's not normal for the free market. Like I said, things are supposed to go up and down in price. Sometimes things are more expensive because of the economy, there's a short supply, whatever. College is a service-based business, so it's really just the only product really is a teacher in the class using a curriculum to relay information to the students, which by the way, now you can get a lot of that information online yourself. You could basically be self-taught. College, the way that we still do it, is kind of dead. And it needs to be tailored to the modern day because, students need to be able to use all of the technological advancements that we have, especially AI and things like that now, to be able to utilize that stuff in college because they're also going to use it outside of college. And, a lot of times they'll stop students from doing that stuff in high school and stuff because they don't want them to rely on it. And I understand that to a point, but at some point you do need to let people use the technology that's available to us because they're going to use it anyway in real life when they're adults and they're out in the work world. But besides that, college has gone up and up every single year. And there's a lot of people who get degrees in things that are really not marketable, but the college will offer them as though it's something that, there's a demand for in society. And, there's a little bit of sketchiness there with, maybe they're just trying to push certain careers to become a thing, or maybe they're just trying to, get people to pay money for something that seems interesting and they look at it as a business model. It's another way to make money from people. I don't really know. Every course is different. Um, like I said, as a collective, college is really it's not that efficient. It's not that good. It's not done that well. A lot of times you go to college, they make you take 2 years of core classes, which is basically just random curriculum stuff that you learned in high school already, or at least you should have. And it really doesn't, pertain to your major. It's just a way to get you to take 2 more full years of learning things that will lead you to some piece of paper that says that you're smart. But the truth is, you could learn things outside of college and become really smart, or you could even not go to college and become really successful. So the way that we do school today, it shouldn't be done that way anymore, and it definitely doesn't warrant it being this expensive. So for today's episode, I just kind of wanted to show Gen Z specifically because they're the younger generation that's coming out of college now, getting careers, and some of them are still young enough where they haven't gone to college yet. It's for those people who are still young enough to where you haven't finally completed your, education process in your adulthood and how you're going to go into the world with, picking a career and things like that. College is not for everybody, and it's definitely not for this many people. You know, there's a reason why back in the day with the silent generation and the early boomers, it was only a handful of people that went to college. And everybody in the boomer generation did pretty much okay. I mean, the ones who went to college did well. The ones who didn't go to college did well. There have been people who, made great careers in all different industries. And the boomers actually hold the most amount of wealth right now. Obviously, they're the oldest generation, but they did okay for themselves. It's not like they didn't go to college and they stayed poor their whole life, and then the next generations went to college and they got rich and they're way richer than their parents. Not true. The boomers hold all the wealth. So college is overrated overall. What it should be is a place where you go to school for continuing education outside of high school. If you're going for something specific that you really do need a good amount of years to study and learn thoroughly so that you could be prepared to take that on in the work world. Now, there's a lot of things that that pertains to. If you're going to become a doctor, a lawyer, something in the financial industry, there's a lot of different things that you could, definitely benefit from a good 4 year term of going to college and studying that thing specifically so that when you do come out, you're actually really knowledgeable and ready to now learn the work experience side of it. But, there's so many degrees or things that people go for and study in college that really are not marketable. They don't really pertain to the real world, and they're not really that, there's not a demand for them. There's a lot of people that go for, and now they have a lot of these like made up courses about theories and things like that that really there's no market for them. I mean, there's basically no jobs out there for that, you know, look for that degree in order to get the job. And they will present it to possible students and say, here's something that you could take a major in and, go for it. Spend all this money, take it, not even explaining to them what does the job market look like for this degree? What does it look like if I go and get this degree? What are the chances I get a job? What is the pay scale for starting and then 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? What does this career path look like for me if I get this degree? And this is really what your student advisors or whatever it is, your college counselors, they really should be doing this with every student. They should have an introductory course where they, maybe separate people in groups of what type of things do they want to study, major are they looking to confirm when they get to college. They should maybe have private classes with them before they even start college during the summer before and say, hey, this is what this looks like if you go down this path. Do you think this is what you want to do? You have the rest of the summer to decide before you get to college and start and enroll in all these courses that now you're not only stuck in, but you have to pay for as before and as you go through the semesters. So it definitely is something that I think the colleges really need to do better. But I want the young generation, Gen Z, to understand college is not for everybody. And if you don't go to college, it absolutely does not mean that you're not going to do well in life financially. There are plenty of people in America that don't go to college and they get great jobs or they start their own business and they actually end up doing better than the people who went to college. You know, there's an adage, but it's true, is that like the majority of people who are rich in this country are B and C students. And that's absolutely true because A students who are kind of taught to follow a certain path, follow the rules, stay in the lines, and don't innovate, don't do anything outside of what the books and the teachers tell you. And the B students and the C students always inherently knew that there was something wrong with that. And so when they are given the option. Do you want to continue down this path of school or do you want to go your own way? A lot of them choose their own way. And, in that process, they find out this truth that you can actually make a lot of money in life doing all kinds of different things without college. And, that's something I think that the younger generation needs to be made aware of today. So, it's not college or you're going to be broke. It's college as an option if you want to go for a specific thing that you're looking to study and then you're looking to get out into the world and you already know what that job is going to pay entry level and then down the line. And then you could put a game plan together of how you're going to pay back that student loan debt so that at least it'll be worth your while. You'll have gone to school, you'll have paid off the debt, and you'll have the career that you wanted. You'll have the career that you hope to have from going to college. But for the people who don't want that to be their path, there are plenty of other things you can do. There are a lot of great trade jobs that are totally missed by the average person because the culture is kind of push people away from college. I mean, push people away from trade jobs and blue collar jobs. Let's get everybody into these white collar jobs where they're, in an office, um, you know, in that type of setting, or they're in the tech world, or everything's kind of isolated to certain industries and certain job roles because that's what the culture, the movies, the TV shows, the whatever has kind of brainwashed the younger generation into thinking that that's all that exists out. But there are a lot of jobs that exist that pay well and they have nothing to do with, white collar office type work. And many of them don't require any college at all. If anything, maybe just like a 2-year associate's degree. So this is just a list from, some website that talks about trade jobs that pay six figures, high paying jobs that pay six figures that don't require any college. Let's just scroll through them and take a look. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different types of jobs. There's more than just these 14. There's many jobs that pay six figures that don't require any college at all. But most of these will require some sort of, trade schooling or, some sort of certification. And, that's the thing. You're not going to go to high school, graduate, or get a GED, and then come out, have no education after that at all, and then make a good living. You're going to have to do some sort of education. But this is really intended to explain that you don't just need college to be that education. You could take online courses. You could go to a trade school. There's a lot of other options outside of college. Let's just take a look at these 14 for example. Air traffic controller. Median salary, $129,000 a year. Annual salary for top earners, 185. That's significantly high. It's a job that you have a huge responsibility because you have to direct the airplanes, into the airport correctly. That is something that you really need to be on the top of your game to do so that people don't get hurt. But it's a job that pays really well. If it's something that interests you, look into that. Commercial pilot, obviously you need to go to pilot school. You need to, log a certain amount of flight hours. I think it's like 10,000 in order to become a pilot. But pilots make really good money. You have a median salary of 100,000, but top earners 200,000. And that's probably just an average for top earners because there are some pilots that make a lot more than that. Especially if you're the pilot of like a private jet or something. This is probably just commercial airliners, but you can make $200,000 a year or be a pilot. That's a really good salary. Pilots have jobs where you kind of have to fly all over the world and, your schedule's never consistent. You're not just sitting in an office where everything's the same every week, but there's a little adventure in that. But it pays really well. So it's definitely an option for some people who aren't afraid of, flying. Construction manager. Obviously, this might be a job where you definitely need to get in at the bottom, work your way up, and learn a lot about um, every facet of a construction site in order to make a manager's position. But depending on the job, there are many different construction positions that pay well over $100,000, especially if you're in a union or if you've been there for a long time. This is a great career path to choose because you can make a good salary in construction, electrical and electronics repairers, powerhouse, substations and relays. This one looks like it pays about 100,000, but could go as high as 120. And that's just for these things that they named. There are specific electrical trades that you can make way more than that, especially if you work for a big utility company or something, or if you work with high tension lines or, some of the more intricate equipment underground or in vaults. These type of jobs could pay well over 100, 200, or maybe even more to do that type of work. Now, obviously, you'll need an electrician's license. You'll need to go to school for that, but that's a trade. You don't have to go to college. You can go to trade school, learn to become an electrician, and then work your way up and make really, really good money in your career life. Elevator installer, this is another great one. Many buildings in every city have elevators, so there's probably jobs for this in every city in the country. So not only can you get paid well, which is looks like top earners about 130, but I'm sure some places pay more. You could probably find a job doing this in any city in America or even in any country in the world. So this is a great industry to be in because it's diverse in terms of locations. You could pick where you want to live and go work in that area, and then have the life you want in the location you want because this job is versatile. It's pretty much everywhere in the country. First line responders, police, detectives, absolutely. Especially working for a city. Not only do you get paid well, and top pay is usually around, 150, 160, 170, depending on the job, depending on, how many hours you put in overtime, things like that. But you can also work in many different departments. You could work for federal agencies, you could work for local city and township agencies, and not only that, you only have to work for a certain amount of time, usually 25, 30 years, and you get to retire with a pension for life. So if you worked for, 30 years and you lived into your 80s, 90s, or even 100, you might be earning a pension to be retired for more years than you were on the job at the end of it. I mean, that's there's not many jobs in the world where you could get paid for a longer period of time than the amount of time that you actually did the job. Being a police officer, especially in different departments, detective, things like that, is always a great job. It just depends on where you want to live. If you want to live in a specific location, you see yourself, living in the, warmer climate in the south or the colder climate in the north or whatever, there is police all over the country. So there's plenty of jobs for police officers all throughout America to figure out where you want to live. Look for a place that's, has a high demand for police officers and needs to fill those positions. And it's a great, job to get into. Obviously, you have to go to police academy, pass the tests and stuff like that. But once you do, you could do that pretty much anywhere in America. In and out manager. This is pretty funny. I didn't expect a fast food restaurant to be on the list, but apparently they make really good money. And I've actually heard this before. They pay their people really well. Apparently, as an in and out manager, again, no college, no nothing. You can get into the fast food industry. You can start out as a employee of In-N-Out, working as a cook, and I'm sure work your way up to this position over time. And that's a lot of money, 160 to work at a fast food restaurant. Nuclear power plant reactor operator, these pay 100,000 plus. Not that many nuclear power plants, so this might be a little bit harder to get. But if you can find a location that's hiring people to do this, and this is something that interests you, it's a job that doesn't require college that pays over 100 grand a year. That's great. Pilot driver operators, 113. We already talked about police officers, power plant operators, 125, transportation, storage, and distribution, up to 162. But there's a lot of different, things that pertain to the transportation distribution industry. You could be a truck driver, you could get your own truck and, charge people for the deliveries, and you could do like big freight, 18 wheelers. You could do, all different types of things with distribution and storage as well. So there's a big industry in that market. And some of these jobs pay really, really well, and you don't need college. A lot of times you just need a CDL license. Inspectors, water transportation worker, 133. Yeah, so that's just a few of these jobs, but there are so many jobs out there that don't require college that you can absolutely make a great living doing, and you just have to know where to look. But if you're young, and I want to end with this, if you're young, you're in school, and high school maybe, or even junior high school, and you're looking for opportunities to get to a place where maybe you don't have the financial means to go to trade school. You were looking at college as a way to get a federal aid where you don't have to pay now, and you can get money from the government, which is really the taxpayers, and that will allow you to go through school. And then when you graduate and get the job, you'll pay down the loan. That a lot of reason that's why people a lot of times that's why people take those jobs. A lot of times that's why people take that those loans out is because they feel, well, I don't really have the means to do it, and they're giving me financial aid. So I'm going to be able to go to college and defer paying this stuff until I get the degree and then get the job to pay for the loans. But there are companies out there that exist that will give you scholarships to do blue collar jobs. And Mike Rowe is one of them. Mike Rowe, if you don't know, he's the guy who did that show Dirty Jobs years ago. Some of you are probably too young to even know what that is, but if you ever have a chance to take a look at that show, it was a great show. It was one of those shows where it's something that people, were, you could see people on the internet doing this today, and they were inspired by probably people like him who did it on TV way before the internet and went around and took a look at blue collar workers, blue collar jobs, and dove into what they do, how they do it, and sort of promoted that to the next generation of people to say, hey, these are still a thing. Not everything is about a job sitting in an office at a desk, but they do have scholarships for people who are looking for blue collar jobs instead of college. And look right here, we're giving away $2.5 million in scholarships this year. So they're looking for hardworking men and women who will keep the lights on, water running, air flowing, people who will show up early, stay late, and bust their asses to get the job done. It actually says that on a scholarship website. It's not for everyone, but we know hard workers are out there. So this is how you apply. You apply on the website, mikeroweworks.org/scholarships. And you could go and you just have to do all the things that they require for the application. And they will, let you submit for a scholarship. And if you are selected, they will give you money towards, I believe, a trade school. I believe that's what this organization is, giving scholarships for, specifically for trade schools. Look here, you have some of their partnerships, supporters, Universal Technical Institute, a whole bunch of blue collar companies that sell products for blue collar workers. And yeah, this looks like a really interesting scholarship program for people who are, like I said, looking to get blue collar jobs, don't want to go to college, but don't have the money for maybe a trade school, and they don't want to spend years working to save up the money to pay for themselves to go to trade school. So this is another option. If you meet the qualifications, for the application process, you could get part of that 2.5 million for your, trade schooling. So, and that's the website right there. So essentially, I just wanted to let you know, hopefully inspire you. There are other opportunities out there. There are other jobs, and there's plenty of things that you can do in this life to make a lot of money. That doesn't just mean you have to go to college or you have to make TikTok dance videos in order to live a successful life. You can get a blue collar job. You can live in a place that's affordable. You could buy a home. You could have a car. You could have a family and children. It's not too late. America's not doomed. And there's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. If you don't go to college, you'll be broke and poor you'll be poor for the rest of your life. And you will basically just be a person who is stuck in a perpetual cycle of being in debt, not being able to enjoy yourself, have fun, or have a family. That's not true. So don't let the world brainwash you. Don't let the culture get you down. There's plenty of things out there that you can do. And we need people in these industries because they're dying industries. They're people that the industry is not going away, but there's less people doing them. There's people who are in them are making a lot more money because the demand is there, but the supply is not. So they have, plenty of customers out there that need their services. And there's so few competition that they're getting all the money. And it's because a lot of people are going to college for all these stupid degrees that don't really mean anything. And there's no real world use for them. And they end up working at Starbucks in their 30s because they just were sold a lie and they have a mountain of student loan debt over their head that they have to pay off. So don't get duped by the world. If you want to go to college, no problem with that. Go to college, get a degree in something specific that is marketable in the world and that you know how much it pays and you know how long it'll take you to pay the student loans back from that career path. But if that's not for you, that's fine. We have a lot of blue collar jobs out there that need to get filled. There are even companies like Mike Rowe's company that are giving scholarships to people to go that route. But I just want to do a quick video on this because I wanted to let the younger generation know you don't just have to go to college. It's not always a great idea to get into a mountain of debt in order to get a degree for something that you could maybe find another career path for without a degree and make just as much money as that thing that you were hoping to do. But yeah, that's it. There's other things out there. Do the research before you go to college. Make these decisions in high school while you're young. Plan ahead. Don't wait until you get old enough to where you know, have to be prepared for college. Do your due diligence first. Make your plans and give things a shot. You never know how things are going to work out. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And that's it. Stay tuned for the next one. All right, everybody, I just want to take a moment to promote my children's book. This is Little Boy Full of Love. That's me on the back. And this is a little sneak peek on the inside. It's a great book. It's a children's book. I actually wrote this for my son, and it's available right now on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Indigo, Bookshop.org, and a lot of other online platforms. But more importantly to me, it's actually available in a lot of bookstores throughout the country. You can find out which ones are closest to you on my Instagram page. You know, we highly recommend that you shop local, buy from a local bookstore. So if you are looking to, you know, get a children's book for you or anybody you know, or even with the holidays coming up, it's a great time to, you know, buy a children's book as a gift. You know, definitely get it from a bookstore that's local to you. But if you absolutely can't get it from one of the bookstores that are currently carrying it right now, and we're in about 15 or 16 different states across the country, so it may actually be in your state, and it could even be local to you. But if you can't get it from the physical bookstore, check out our Amazon storefront. The book's available on there right now. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, you may want to do your Christmas or Hanukkah or holiday shopping early, and you can even order it from our Amazon storefront and ship it directly to whoever you're gifting it to. But it's available on those platforms, Amazon storefront and bookstores and other websites that I mentioned. But I want to take a moment here to look at the storefront just to give you an idea of some other stuff that we have available on there. These are products that we highly recommend. They are things that we use in our daily lives, and it's all organized by category. So it's a lot easier to, you know, shop for the holidays and specifically for things that interest you, particular categories. Available right now, many different items on our storefront. If you can see here, 61 items just in women's apparel, fall decor, because right now we're in fall, 26 items, kitchen items, you know, baking specifically, things for around the house, children's toys, even stuff for parties. If you're trying to save money on a party and throwing your own, you know, occasion, you can even buy some cool gadgets here to help you, you know, put on a better party. You know, health and wellness items here, even stuff for Christmas. And there's the book right there. So you can get it from the storefront. You can get it from the bookstores, like I mentioned. But it's available on all these different platforms. It's really easy to find and gift to somebody. Also, I want to show you the apparel shop, and these are some clothing items that we actually produced. So if you're looking to get some cool apparel items, you know, shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, leggings, even accessories, cell phone cases, women's makeup bags, fanny packs, coffee mugs, all different types of stuff, even some, you know, art, all different categories here, apparel, homeware, accessories, drinks, even digital items. It's all on this store, healthybodygoodssoul.com. Anything that pertains to you or somebody that you're looking to get a gift for the holidays. A lot of great designs on here, a lot of cool designs that we actually custom created. Stainless steel water bottles, especially now with the fall and winter. A lot of cool hoodies and long sleeve shirts. This is a really cool one, I think, for women. The original Be Your Soul apparel, that one's actually really popular. People tend to like that. This one's one of my favorites. The free shirt. It's the American flag, and it says free, and that says not property of the United States government. That one's pretty cool. Got all different types of tank tops, hoodies, long sleeve, short sleeve, tote bags, coffee mugs, even some items for kids.
backpacks. So if you're the type that likes to, plan ahead, I would definitely recommend ordering from the Amazon storefront or the apparel shop within the next couple of weeks to get everything in time for the holidays. Use code SAVE15 on the apparel shop to save 15% off everything on the storefront. So order within the next week or two, and you'll definitely have everything in time for the holidays. Definitely check out all the links to everything, the Amazon storefront, the book, and the apparel shop in my bio on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. But you can also find them in all the show notes for every episode that I post, and get all your orders in time for the holidays. All right, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. It helps the channel continue to grow. And put in the comments things that you would like me to talk about and make videos on for the future, and I will definitely do my best to do that. Stay tuned for the next one.